Welcome back, sixth grade teachers. I'm curious, have you been watching these videos one right after another? Or are you checking this one out after a long period of time? I'd be curious to know. All right, we are jumping into one of the last videos for the training. I think I might do one more where I just focus, and this will be after, focus on creating an example lesson using everything that we've learned. And I've done that for the summer school training, and that really helped people see how to use all of this together. But I think that would make it too long of a video if I put that in here with the remaining part of the curriculum app. So let's go ahead and share the screen so you guys see what I see. There we are. We've covered the unit landing page. We've looked at the resource discovery education. We looked at the scope and sequence. So now the final piece of the puzzle to help us build and create lessons is the actual pacing guide. Now, the pacing guide is based off of what Discovery Ed has recommended that these are. Obviously, things are different in the classroom. You may not choose to do every activity. You can see I even crossed one of these off just because of looking it over. You can do the same thing. You can highlight things. Oh, I love this activity. Don't do this one. And that's sort of the stuff that I want feedback at the end of each unit. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'll have a link, right? Oh, see, link for feedback. That'll be on every curriculum app. I'll also email and all that stuff. So have one of these printed, make some notes, things that worked, things that didn't, how you might do them differently, because we'll want to update this as the year goes on. After we've used it in the classroom, I want this to be enhanced so that it's getting better. All right, so let's start from the top and work our way down. And we'll just take it one little bit at a time. It starts off pretty straightforward. Here's the concept, its name, and then kind of what is going to be talked about in this concept. All of this information is kind of pulled from Discovery Ed. I'm not sitting here trying to come up with everything. So this all ties into what's actually being taught. The student learning objectives. These are really good because I know most schools ask for you to have a student I can statement up on the board. Well, here you are a bunch of I can statements. All you need to do is as you're going through, say, am I answering this one or are we moving on to this one? And what's nice about these is it has the right vocabulary. It's using the higher DOKs like synthesize and gather information, develop models, argue from evidence. So instead of having up a student learning objectives that's students will recall this, and then your instructional coaches are like, you need to improve it. Here are some really good ones that tie into what the students will actually be learning that they can you can measure. Can they do that now? Because it's based off the resource. So definitely steal those. You might modify them based off what you're doing in your lesson, but those are key to helping your classroom focus in on what it is students are learning to do. Guiding phenomena. Remember, this was on the intro page on Discovery Ed for those that were with me in the previous video. But also when students get down to the explain section, so when they go to explain, and it's probably activity 27, when they go to the explain, they have to answer that question based off everything they learned and use the claim, evidence, and reasoning. The claim, that's pretty straightforward. Why does my heart race when I get scared? Because my heart needs to start pumping blood to bring nutrients to the rest of the body. What's my evidence? That's where I got to say, okay, well, X, Y, Z, plug this in. What's my reasoning? Now you have to reason everything out. So you'll want to keep this on students' minds as you go throughout the concept, because they'll need to be able to answer that by the end. The standards that align to this, obviously this was in the scope and sequence, also linked here, and it's also direct links to the standard breakdown. So if you're looking for developing supporting materials or bringing your own stuff into it, how does it apply to these standards to make sure that our students are being successful? I know sixth grade, you're not connected with the seventh and eighth in most situations, and so you don't feel like they're being tested on these standards. But again, in eighth grade, they take tests based off those standards. So definitely making sure that our students are successful and they get coverage on those standards. Those are linked there. And now you get to the actual concept suggested pacing guide. I built the pacing guide based off of what Discovery Ed recommends that it should be. And I think for sixth grade, I started it off. You see, there's not that much in the first week for activities. I knew that first opening week, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff going on. I don't need to put in a full week and then have teachers complaining. So this is actually one, maybe two 45-minute days. So week one, I know there's other things going on. You're trying to get that classroom expectations and things in, but definitely try to get in some of this into that first week, incorporated with your classroom management. So that way you kind of get through. But again, I didn't put a lot in that first week because I knew teachers would need kind of a ease into things type of thing. I've been there. And so that way you don't feel like you're being behind right off the get-go. I'm getting ahead of myself, you guys. Let's start up here, okay? So this column here is the main column. So we're actually going to work from right to left. I don't know if that was right on screen, but we're going to work from right to left. So this is where all the activities are listed. And where I suggested earlier, you're marking down things. Yes, I love this. That one did not work for my classroom, or modifications, or, ooh, there's a gizmo that does this better. And those are the type of things that I would love to hear from you guys, so that we can actually, right now, all this is Discovery Ed. But in the future, I want this to be a blend of Discovery Ed and gizmos, FET, things that you guys have created will also be in there. And that's what this first link is right here. In every concept, I'm going to have a link to a Google Drive folder. It's managed by me, so things can't get messed up. But if you create things that go with the unit or alternatives, things that you used and worked out really well, I would love for you to share those with me. You will get credit for it, and they will be housed in this folder. And then teachers, you guys can kind of go and see what other people have done. And then afterwards, I can go through and, if things are really good, build it into the actual curriculum map. And I think that's a good way for us to kind of share ideas and collaborate. The other thing, and I think I'm going to end up moving the location of this, but most of the concepts, not all of them, but most of the concepts have this additional reading resource. I think I already no, I did. I'll go ahead and get it loading. This I might pair up with the teacher background, because what this really helps do is frame out the entire concept from a teacher perspective, as you'll see from right here. So you've got your introductions, and it's a lot. And so I think it kind of belongs in the background. I think this was their original version, like the textbook before it was digital. Anyways, so I might move this, but it'll be available somewhere. In the first concept of every unit, I have the intro to the unit phenomena. In this case, it's the biosphere 2. Remember, that was up on the unit landing page. It gave you this scenario, but how do you actually introduce that to the students? Well, they give you some options. So let's open this up. This is actually from the teacher's manual in that booklet, and I just snapped a photo, turned it in PDF, so that way you guys can view it. So depending on how much time you have available or want to spend on introducing this phenomenon to your students, you have 3 different suggestions that they can do. Some of them are real quick. It's like, hey, here's the question. What do you think? Or we're going to watch this video and now we can have a class discussion. Some of them are a full-on classroom mini project. So they kind of range on what's going on. And so this might give you a good idea for how you want to introduce the idea to your classroom. And so these are really good. Again, you can either find them in your teacher's book or it's right here. So hopefully you find that very useful for how do we introduce the unit phenomena. And I've also included some additional links depending on which unit you're in that might also tie into it, some additional things. That's not in every unit, but I'm trying to find some things that are in Discovery Ed that would be useful there. Okay, so we've introduced the phenomenon. Now we are ready to do some lessons. I think I highlighted this in a previous video, but the structure of this is I just follow what they have. They have the Engage tab. What I mentioned, you don't have to be a pro to navigate Discovery Ed because I built it in. So these activities 1 through 4, I don't have to go and find them on Discovery Ed. This link right here, if we let it load up, I'm on the Engage tab, 1, 2, 3, 4. I found them. So again, I'm taking you right to where you need to go. Once I'm to the Explore tab, again, this link will take you right to the Explore tab. So you don't have to be a pro at Discovery Ed, but what I think you'll find is the more we use it, you'll end up becoming a pro at it. You might actually use this less often because you'll just know how to get there on the actual Discovery Ed side of things. I did pull one additional thing. So this isn't an activity on Discovery Ed, but it was on the intro page. I've copied, pasted, and formatted things so that it fits as a one-pager for vocabulary strategies. So every concept has 2 different ways that you could do vocab strategies for that particular concept with all the vocabulary linked right here. I think I'm going to end up changing this document a little bit because right now you can't click on the links. And so I think I have this document as a Word anyways. So I might switch this from a PDF to a Word document. So that way the links would actually work. And you could use that for students to go and view the pictures and videos that go along with them. But these give you step-by-step instructions for how you would do it. You can look at both of them and say, oh, I only want to do this one, or maybe I'll do a bit of both. Maybe this is a extension activity for students who finish early. Maybe this is how I introduce. Totally up to you. But here is your kind of vocab activity that they lay out for you. And if you have other ideas, I'd love to hear them. And then we can make those additional things for people to access. And that's always going to be in the Engage category. Put it there. And that is for every concept moving forward. As we move on from the Engage, remember the Engage is 1 or 2 days, depending on how long you spend on introducing the phenomena and all of that. 1 or 2 days spent here, and then you're moving into the Explore. I've gone ahead and pulled, let's see here. Must have linked it twice. If I click on this guy. So it provided this for every concept, grades 6 through 8. It's a main idea graphic organizer. It's kind of, okay, for each concept, we kind of have these 3 big main ideas, and then you can have your supporting details listed out. What this is going to be useful for is that claim, evidence, and reasoning, right? So if you got your question listed here, here's my claims, here's my evidence, and then on the back, I can write out my reasoning, right? So if you have students doing this throughout, that can help them when they get to that explain activity. However, this is the exact same format for every concept grade 6 through 8. So they might get a little bit bored of this template. So maybe there are some better formats or different models that better fit each of the different concepts. And so if you guys do end up creating any main idea graphic organizers that are different from this, I would love to have that available and to start changing what this one is, because that's pretty default across the board. It's what they have. But I think it'd be fun to have different ones for each concept that fits it better. So that's there at the beginning. If you are a folder or notebook type of classroom, I think that's a great idea to incorporate or build out your own thing that's better. And now we're into the Explore. As I mentioned before, the Explore is where all your activities are. So in the next video that I talked about, which would be the last one, I think I'm doing 5 videos for this series and we're on number 4. You have your activities listed. And again, you're going to group these together to build out a lesson. So it's not just I'm doing one activity today. It's all right, activities 5 through 6. Let's go in there. What's available? How can I build a lesson out of these? Maybe we assign it on the computer. Maybe the kids don't get on the computer at all. Okay. And that's how I want people to view this is we don't have to assign and do it on computer, even though it's a digital resource. you'll see how you can build these out and be super engaging. These things that I've highlighted here, these SOS strategies, I highlighted them here just so you can quickly look at them. But if you actually go to activity 6, which I pre-pulled up so you can view it. So when I clicked into activity 6, some activities will have these SOS strategies. And this one's called Silence is Golden. Now, these are like classroom engaging activities that are very creative. And they have videos here to explain to you, the teacher, how to do it. And then you can run this in your classroom. Alternatively, if you're interested, they also make videos that are for students to explain to them how to do the activity. So you don't have to run the intro, but these are typically pretty good for running that. And so these might be a good way to increase your teaching pedagogy with some interesting and engaging activities. I went ahead and linked them here straight to the video. So I'll show you what that looks like. See, it'll take me straight to the video. Just so as you're planning, you don't have to go find the activity to see what it is, to see if it's something you'll use. You can just watch the video on its own. I've linked them anytime that they were listed there, but you don't have to use them. These aren't specific to the activity. These are general. And so you can use these any day you want if you find it, like here, Silence is Golden. You're using it again in the digestive system. And so if you can really do it there, boom, you're going to do it again here. 6-word story, that's actually probably a better example where you've probably heard of this one, where after learning something, you have only 6 words to describe it. And that limits students to being very thinking through the words that they want to use in order to explain something. So those I've listed out so that way they're available to you. As you come down to the end, you get to the explain, which we talked about earlier. The elaborate, this has your projects that I kind of viewed as like extensions for students who are really killing it. If you are running out of time, this might be where you have to make some cuts. The additional resources, I think I pulled those from your elaborate and things like that. And then the link to the Beyond tab, I put that here as well. So kind of some additional, if you're needing some extra stuff, you can check out here. And then straight to your Evaluate tab, that's how you get to your summative, practice, and performance. But those are also listed, practice, summative, performance. So there you go. You don't have to go all the way there to find them. I do have them listed out and linked here. So that takes me to, let's move to the left, suggested assessments. Now, it's not my suggested assessments. These are what are actually linked in Discovery Ed as assessments. So let's look activity 9. See, activity 9 comes at the end of this. Activity 14 comes at the end of this. It's not every time that they do that. Sometimes they're built within. But these are where it is asking the questions, the core questions of the concept. And so when you're building out your lessons, I would say the things that are under here under suggested assessments, those might be the ones you consider assigning to your students, because then you can collect those specific questions and you can track growth as they move throughout the concepts. So I don't encourage, especially like looking here, when you do these first 4, these are engaging the students. Activity 4 is listed as an assessment, but it's asking questions students haven't learned yet. So if I assign this on Discovery Ed, they complete it, I've gathered that data for where they are, and as they move throughout, they're answering the same questions, but after they've learned them, and I can show growth. So that's actually a great strategy for using Discovery Ed to help show your data of growth. That's my idea behind it. And then also you have your practice and concept summatives performance all linked here. So that's what that column is for. You can also go ahead and look ahead to preview what are the type of questions they need to be able to answer. And that helps direct how you are going to teach the material to the students. Remember, we don't teach towards the test. We don't teach to the test. We teach towards it. I think that's the phrase I use. The next column over is hands-on activities and interactives. 6th grade, you guys actually start with a lot of interactives. So all of these if you just see it linked, it's probably an interactive. I think activity 14 is building a poster board. So it's kind of simple, but those are all interactives. The way you know if it's a hands-on lab, like those big kits, those bins, the way you know if it's that, and you don't have one in your first concept, but once you get into the second concept, I did this where I highlight, hey, take a look, it's coming up. So if you're up here in this week, you're like, oh yeah, what do we got coming up? Uh-oh, I got a lab that requires some advanced preparation. And that just means that there's materials that need to be brought together in order to do these. Activities 8 and 10, and I think possibly even 6 down here. A few of these use microscopes. Now, I've gotten microscopes out to most schools. I have a few more to get out as the year gets started. So hopefully we get every school outfitted, 6th grade specifically, with microscopes so that you'll be able to do these activities. One of them is looking at plant cells. The other is looking at pond water, trying to find those prokaryotes. So hopefully we can at least do one of these, but now we actually have the microscopes available to do those. And I am working on creating instructional videos to help you, the teacher, with what's the setup look like, what words students struggle with, what are we supposed to be seeing. So those will be linked in eventually. I'm working on those. Actually, I'm starting with 6th grade. So that's really nice that when you're looking ahead, you're not caught by surprise by an activity where it takes time to bring stuff together. You can kind of sneak peek, okay, click on this. What are the materials that I need for this? And then, here they are. And what's nice is when I was putting the video together for this activity, everything in this is in your bins 1 and 2. If it's got the little star, that means it's in your bins. But the things without a star, so like the microscope, I've worked to get you those. I'm pretty sure I saw hand lenses in there, so I don't know why it's not starred. Like scissors, you probably got scissors. So all these things are available, and you can be successful in getting the students engaged in hands-on labs, which is what we're really going for. All right, so finishing up as we move left, big ideas. This is the one column where I'm not sure that what I have right now is assisting the most. Right now, it's kind of, all right, in this week, what are sort of the big topics that are being taught and all of that sort of stuff. But I think you guys kind of know that just by planning out your lessons. So one idea I thought about having this change to would be scaffolding. And I talked about this earlier in terms of sometimes students weren't around for the lessons that you needed prior to this. And so having something here of your students will need to know these things before you get into here. Here's some quick videos or resources if your students don't know it to help them get caught up. So that way everybody can be successful. So I might switch this column, but it might start off as big ideas. We'll see. Finally, the week, just so that everybody's on the same page of how did these weeks get sorted? How did all of this get planned out? I think I explained this in the previous video, but when you are on Discovery Ed, these videos always go longer than I thought. They have these little time things. So when I was planning this out, I would say, okay, that's 5 minutes, 10, 20. Okay, so that's 35 minutes plus another 5, 10. So all of this right here adds up to 45 minutes. That's one day. And so when you're planning a lesson, you can actually use all these activities to build one day lesson. And that's the idea behind it. So I counted that as one day. So 5 through 9 was one day, 10, 20, 20. So that one works out to 50. It's not exact. So that's the second day, third, fourth. So let's look back. On my week, I ended at 15. So yeah, I said, oh, that's about enough. And here's one more day. So that's about 4, maybe 5 days if you're stretching things of 45-minute class periods. So it's very doable. You don't have to squeeze in a ton. And I'm expecting you guys look through this. Like I already looked at activity 14 and said, don't probably need to do that one. And you might cut things out. So I think this is a very comfortable pacing guide, and it helps make sure that we get everything covered as we move throughout the year. Okay, I think I've talked long enough. The final video will be taking everything and putting it together. I'll have a sample lesson plan for you guys where I pull out some activities, show you how I would plan it out. I'll probably focus on doing it with the intro. So something from here, how I would build my first day. And typically when I plan those out, it's enough content. It might last 2 days. And so I think that'll be helpful for you guys to see exactly how I envision all of this coming together to build a lesson, and you can actually see that happen. So that'll be on my last video. Hopefully these have helped to clarify all the things that I put on here. It's a lot to take in, but I'm sure you guys will be successful, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys throughout the year. All right, I'll see you at the next video.